What's up, guys? Welcome to the Strive Tribe. Today we got Dr. Colton, my bad, Dr. Colton Korne with us. He's a chiropractor down in San Diego. He is the owner of FPI, and I'll let him tell us a little more about his practice and what he does before we kind of go into it today.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, again, super happy to be here, Devin. Super stoked, man. It's been a long time, man. It's great to chat with you and see about everything that you're growing with your business, and being in the health and fitness industry. It's just nice to be able to have these conversations with other kind of like-minded people. But yeah, background about me. I am a sports and rehab based chiropractor out here in San Diego. Been in practice for about 4 years almost, and then been in San Diego for just going on 3 years now. So again, just about me, I again focus on sports medicine, rehab based treatment. So I incorporate chiropractic in with other types of physiotherapy and different models to help integrate and really kind of provide the best value for my patients. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. What does FPI stand for?
Yeah, so FPI is a Functional Performance Institute, Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. So,
Okay.
yeah, so
Nice, man.
just focusing on building functionally strong people,
Hey, definitely. We're all about that here. So,
Yeah,
what led you to get into like chiropractic from college and from your fitness journey?
yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I grew up as an athlete. I mean, I played a ton of sports growing up, a lot more in the extreme sports, and got into volleyball in high school, and then started getting more into kind of weightlifting, bodybuilding things as I got into college. And I always loved working with athletes. I coached volleyball all through high school or through college. And I just, again, really, really liked working with athletes, but I kind of discovered chiropractic my senior year of college. Again, I'd known about chiropractic, but just didn't really have like, a ton of ideas about what it was about. And so I ended up literally just finding chiropractors around CSUN and emailing a bunch of them and saying, hey, will you let me come shadow you for a day for free? And I'll just come and be a fly on the wall. And I found a chiro who I met with him, had a great first day with him. And he's like, hey, if you want to come in twice a week, come shadow me. And so I did that, just an unpaid kind of free shadowing opportunity that I did for quite a few months. And it really, within probably 2 weeks of being there, I was like, this is it. This is exactly what I want to do with my life. So I don't know. I fell in love with the aspect of like the holistic health and wellness side of chiropractic. And I really love like the instant gratification side of healthcare, and on that end with chiropractic, of getting people real results, getting them results quickly, and not, and staying away from drugs and surgery. Because that's just like, I love physicians. My sister's an ER nurse. I know it has its time and place, but I just feel like we have such a major problem in the United States with people who are overly reliant on drugs and surgery for solving their problems. And I just really want to help people avoid those routes as much as possible, and try to help them heal their bodies and teach them along with that on how to take care of their bodies. So
100%. I definitely agree with you. I mean, one of even my clients, my longtime clients, and now one of our members, his wife had a messed up, her ankles all messed up, and I forget exactly what was wrong with her right now, but he kept taking her different specialists, and each one wanted to do operations. Each one, like, what is that, 5 of them? And I was like, yo, just check out, there's a chiropractor here in the Valley that, I know just from some of the athletes that I train. And I was like, just check him out, see what he says. And then literally after the first session, it was like instant relief. And then now, talking months later, she still goes to him, and it's like, nothing happened in the beginning. It's crazy, but people don't realize that a lot of things can be corrected with, certain alternatives to just surgery, to just, drugs, and just masking that pain, or trying to take the quick fix. It's like, for example, like kind of tying it into that our field and into, the gym. It's like the person that pushes themselves and wants to lose weight in and out of the gym every single day versus the person that goes and gets, lipo, so there's that case and everywhere. So, I mean, honestly, like, I'm glad you found that. It's similar to how I found, the training side of it, and what I turned from a college job into now a career. You know, it's one of those things, all of a sudden you find something and it just clicks and you end up loving it, you know? So dude, I'm so happy for you. That's sick. One of the things I'm gonna put your Instagram in the description as well, because I definitely want people to check your stuff out, because you got some interesting content on your the chiropractic page.
Yeah.
So one of the things I saw and I want you to kind of go into a little bit is about one, I guess the first part would be the benefits of chiropractics. Like, what are the benefits? What are the myths? And we'll go that route first. And then I have a question about, I saw a post and I liked your analogy off of it, but the before and after a workout and getting adjusted around that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, myths, man, we could spend a whole podcast just talking about the myths around chiropractic. But I can definitely start by just talking about like the benefits of chiropractic, you know, like from just a foundational principle level, how chiropractic was originally founded, was essentially just really focusing on restoring natural motion and restoring natural kind of movement into the body. Obviously, we think about stretching and we think about massage as attacking the muscles. But again, we really focus as far as chiropractors, we're obviously very joint heavy, especially joints surrounding the spine. And the main reason for that being that spine pain, when you look at like overall pain and conditions like disability across the United States, obviously you have your main preventable ones, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, as the top two spends. And then number three underneath those two is low back pain, you know, and all three of those things, which are literally our three biggest health expenditures in the United States, are all preventable diseases, you know?
Yep.
And so again, from my end, there are obviously aspects of movement and exercise, which is heavily where you guys come in, you know, in the strength and conditioning and the health and fitness realm, of really focusing on that, on diet, nutrition, and training. Where I focus obviously heavily on my end is those people who do suffer an injury, or those people who are dealing with that kind of chronic repetitive stress. Either they haven't moved in a long time and that's why they're having pain, or they have improper movement, or their mechanics aren't quite right, and then they end up injuring themselves while trying to exercise. We see that like right now is like New Year's resolution season. Everyone wants to exercise and everyone's going way too hard in the gym, hurting themselves. And so obviously that's kind of where I come in. But steering this back on track, really, like when it comes to spine related conditions as a chiropractor, our focus is just maintaining natural range of motion and maintaining natural movement and health of the spine. Just because, again, it's your spinal cord is your lifeline, man. It is brain to the rest of the body. So making sure that kind of communication system and that highway is functioning as best it can really sets people up for success. Beyond that, of course, this is another myth that I will jump into really quickly, is everyone thinks that chiropractors only treat the spine. But again, looking at all the different joints in the body between shoulders, wrists, hips, ankles, you know, your friend who had an ankle injury, perfect example. And we'll see things that affect the system. Like I'll have people who have low back pain, but it's radiating pain down the back of their leg, and they'll think they have a knee injury, but really actually the pain's coming from their low back. Or on the opposite side, you'll have someone who has, you know, an injured ankle, and because of that, they're favoring their other side. They're putting all their weight on the opposite hip, and now they have low back pain as a result of that ankle injury on the opposite side. So just having a good foundational understanding, especially of like body movement, motion, we call biomechanics is the big fancy word, but just really understanding that and how to help people through that process. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, I actually want to kind of go into that myth a little bit, just as a side thing. Like I've seen, because one of the, like my thing is that for some reason I like watching like the videos you post, as well as a couple other chiropractors. Like it's always fun to hear someone like crack and pop, you know. What's the whole deal with the myofascia, like the skin pops? Is that just like a little fad thing? Because I've only seen a few people do it, but it's like, you know, is that just, you know, for the videos? Is that actually a thing? Is there a reason why?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, what you're talking about is like skin rolling. If I were to grab the skin and pinch and they'll lift over the spine and hear a pop sound, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about actually the adjusting of the spine?
No. Like where they'll grab like something, or like even like they grab like somewhere and they pull it and it like makes a little pop.
Yeah. So this is where people always have to understand, like too, like, and especially with my content too, like really the way that the content market is shifted, especially the chiropractors, is like, everyone wants to hear a big loud pop. They want to hear this big reaction. They want to see it, of course. So like, that's why we hook up microphones. I'll put a clip microphone on the back of their shirt or on their low back, because just like it captures that pop,
Right.
with the skin one, again, really what you will see is like, you'll hear, or the ear one, that's a common
Right.
one, is you'll hear cartilage, and we call there's a tube that connects your ear to your sinus. And so sometimes people will deal with like ear infections, ear issues. And so sometimes you can get that pop as you're kind of opening up space. There might be a little gas bubble that releases, and that's kind of what you're hearing. It's the same thing that happens when you like crack your knuckles and you hear that pop. It's gas releasing from a joint. With the skin, it's a little bit different, because what you're doing is you are lifting the skin, thereby creating a vacuum. And so air will go into fill that space, and that's kind of what makes a little bit of that cavitation noise. So you'll see that docs, especially over the spine, there's just a lot of skin to grab, and so they'll pull the skin up, creates this little kind of ripping, popping noise. Again, as far as like major benefit, I don't know. It's
Do you personally
you
do
have
it?
to look at, there's crowd pleaser adjustments, as I like to say, like what adjustment gets the biggest, loudest crack, what adjustment
Right.
sounds really, really, what one gets the biggest, reaction. Of course, you'll see people like they'll hug the person's head and they kind of grab with two hands and they pull, or the Y strap or the ring dingers, all the popular ones, and I do them myself. Like they're great adjustments. I would just say, just understand that like sometimes it's like, wow, this is really great. And other times it's like, well, this is a crowd pleaser. So,
Right. Right.
different like that. So
No,
the skin roll is a bit more of a crowd pleaser.
perfect. That was my only question on
Mm-hmm.
that, But again, going back into the, treatments before and after, because when you actually, I even had that wrong. I mean, it's not that I answered anyone's questions on that, because no one really asked me that. I mean, that's a question you ask your chiro. But like the whole getting adjusted before or after your workout, like when I listened to your reel the other day about that, I was like, damn, I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's like chiropractic has a lot of different avenues, and there's kind of differences of opinion and philosophy on chiropractic, which again is just a whole different story. And it's why I tell people, like, it's again, like, it's like if you went to a physician or you went to an orthopedic surgeon or a physical therapist and you're like, man, I really did not jive with that person, I did not like that provider, like, just understand that every provider is different. And so we all have
Yep.
different viewpoints, different treatment styles, and different beliefs on what we think. And I kind of highlight one of those ones when I talk about, should I or can I work out after an adjustment. Some docs out there promote like, hey, I aligned you, I put your spine back into place, which is a myth in itself. He's like, I put your spine back in place, leave it alone. And I'm like, I don't like that, because at the end of the day, the whole point of an adjustment and a manipulation, what the science and the literature actually tells us, is that when you are adjusting someone, you are putting motion into that joint. A joint that was stuck and stiff, I'm restoring that natural range of motion again. Easy way I use this is like someone who, a lot of times, all the time, I get people like, yeah, I have trouble turning my head. Like, it's hard for me to back out of a parking space. And then I'll adjust them. And at the end of the treatment, I'm like, hey, retest that same motion. And they look and they're like, holy shit, I can look over my shoulder. That's so much better. And I say, Bob, that isn't better. That's normal. You just haven't had normal in a long time, because this joint has been so stuck. But imagine I adjusted Bob and I said, okay, Bob, don't move your neck. Like, don't look over your shoulder. I need this to stay perfect. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So in that aspect, I always use that analogy, or I talk about like, you take your bike to a bike shop for a tune-up, you have a rusty chain because the bike's been sitting in the garage. They're going to spray oil on that chain. They're going to get the sprocket moving. What do you think you should do after that? Go ride the bike. Like, just go, like, take it out, spin, get everything moving. So that's kind of my philosophy on that. And then again, the one where I talk about before an adjustment, that one gets a little more nuanced, because it really is kind of a case by case basis, where I've had some people who they come into me fresh from a workout and they're like, yeah, our workout this morning was 50 deadlifts and 50 burpees, and now I can't walk. And I'm like, okay, well, your back is really messed up. You're 9 out of 10 pain, like in tears, waddling into my office. Like, I gotta, there's not a whole lot I can do at this point. Whereas some people, as I mentioned, that real, like, they're like, hey, doc, I don't feel pain until like mile 5 of a run. I'm like, okay, well, I need you to go run 5 miles, and then I need you to come in and see me, because it'll help me at least understand your pain points a little better. So again, just to kind of recap that stuff for people who haven't seen it, you can always check out my videos. But that one is one where, again, like you're like, hey, I don't really know. I don't know if you should work out before or after. Talk to your chiro. Definitely always refer to me, and I'm always going to direct them as best I can. So
does it affect, like, if let's say if we were to work out like right now and not being in any like pain from the workout, but the muscles being like, filled with blood and, everything, like, does that affect you being able to adjust or feel anything that needs to be adjusted?
Good point. Good point. I think it heavily depends, like I've had workouts where it's just a very like back heavy workout, or a posterior chain like heavy workout, like a lot of deadlifts and kettlebell swings or whatever, or there's some Olympic lifting, and so the low back muscles are just really, really pumped, from that workout. Then they come in and like, hey, I really want to get this adjusted, and I'm like, hey, I can try. It may just be that the muscles are really, really tight, and so it may be a little difficult to move that bone. But again, it just depends. Like, it really depends on what their goal is. Because if you had no pain and you came in, then I might say, yeah, like if you're looking to get a really good adjustment, get some stuff moving, then like, sure, maybe don't come see me right after you did a bunch of deadlifts or things like that, where your erectors are kind of lit up. But it's not like, oh my God, you're ruining the session, you're wasting your money, don't come. It's like, it just depends. So.
No, definitely. That makes total sense. How often should people get adjusted? Like, either, I know it's going to be a case by case scenario in the sense of like if there's an injury, but on just a regular basis, like let's say right now I have no pain, like how often is your body going out of alignment, and how often should you be in like daily checkups or weekly checkups, and so forth?
That's a fantastic question. This is something I deal with, as I've gone through my practice, is just really helping to direct people. I think this is probably one of the more difficult questions that I tend to deal with personally, is trying to direct people on a wellness maintenance plan. For me personally, I really look at it as being a unique and individual scenario where a lot of people know their bodies, and especially when you start getting adjusted regularly. Like, if you come in to see me and I'm like, hey, I don't really know what frequency works well for you. If you don't have any pain, let's just start. We'll go like once a week. I want to see how your body feels. If you're feeling good, then I'm going to start to space you out. And some people will find that they have a different range in which they get adjusted. And I say this because I have patients who see me twice a week, and I have patients who see me twice a year, like, and everything in between. Like, I have a patient who was T-boned in a car accident. He fractured one of the vertebrae in his neck. He healed from it, but he has massive amounts of scar tissue. He has tons of chronic pain, and he has headaches. And so he comes and sees me twice a week without fail. But he's like, this is the most valuable thing I do, because this is what helps keep my pain down, and I can manage and I can live my life and do all the things that I want to do. But I have to get adjusted like twice a week. And that's his preference. Other people, it really depends on, again, your body. Some people are just there. As I always say, you get clients who are like, they're just naturally flexible. Like, you'll test them, be like, okay, how well do you squat? And they just like perfectly squat, ass to grass, like their knees are over their toes, like perfect Asian squat, and you're like, God damn, like, and they're like, should I be stretching? And I'm like, you don't need to stretch that often. Like, you're really, really flexible, like some people are kind of gifted in that, and like I can adjust them, and then I won't see them for a couple months, and they'll come back in like 3 months later, and I'm like, hey, haven't seen you in a while. They're like, yeah, I've honestly felt great for the last 3 months. Like, it wasn't until last week and something kind of popped up. So it really is so unique and so dependent. And I'm trying to really, it just comes down to me understanding you and your body. And you'll also understand from getting adjusted, like, okay, what's my frequency? How well do I work? And again, that also changes. It really depends. Like, if I have athletes who are in season, they're like, hey, I'm really pushing it hard. I'm grinding hard right now in the gym. I'm really pushing it. And I'm just a little more sore, a little more beat up. Then they may need to get adjusted a little bit more frequently. Or I have, like, in San Diego, I have like jiu-jitsu athletes and fighters who are in fight camp. So their calories are low. They're just redlining it in the gym. They're trying to cut weight for fights, and they're just beat up. So I'm like, hey, yeah, we need to get you in a little more frequently to just keep your body moving. I'll flush things out, get you adjusted. Whereas other people who, again, and then they go into off season, a little more recovery work, they can do more stretching and more massage on their own. And that tends to help. So the more that people exercise and move, the more that they take care of, again, like the basic necessities of life, good nutrition, enough water, enough sleep, enough exercise, stress management. They manage those 5 things right there. They're going to greatly increase their chances of like, hey, I don't need to see you as often. Maybe I only need to see you every 2 weeks, every month, every couple months, whatever. But it's so highly dependent and it's so highly variable. I'll have people who are on a schedule and then, they're just like, hey, I'm really pushing it right now. Or, hey, something flared up. Hey, all right, come see me a little more frequently. We'll start to space you back up. So
no, definitely. Honestly, it makes
not an easy question at all. It's tough.
No, but it makes. I mean, honestly, it makes sense. I mean, even like with personal training and stuff. Like when I was doing just personal training, it's people would be like, okay, I want to see you every day, and then you're like, well, look, you don't need to see me every day. Some people like it, and then other people, you tell them, look, we need to train every single day until X point, and then we can start spacing it out. Or in other people, you're like, let's just train once a week, give you new workouts, all that kind of stuff. It really, I get it. That makes 100% sense.
Yep.
What's your craziest case or craziest like rehab that you've had to do with chiropractics? Like, I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff on like online. That's the only reason to ask, just to kind of get your personal stories,
Yeah, let's see, man. I mean, I've seen quite a few things. I've really, I guess the craziest from like a musculoskeletal thing. I mean, I've seen people who, I've seen torn ACLs, I've seen torn labrums who are just chronic dislocate, they're always dislocating their shoulder. I've seen people with like full blown, like I've had people where I'm like, hey, you actually need to go to a surgeon. Like this is that bad, So I've definitely had people who are that bad. My goal is always to avoid, but I'm going to do everything I can. And if I'm like, hey, we run 4 to 6 to 8 weeks of conservative care and they're not responding the same way that we want, we're starting to see them lose function in the leg. As I mentioned, like spinal cord is so important and your spine is so important to take care of because it houses the cord. And if that spinal cord starts to get compressed, you will literally start to feel like the classic sciatica, the shooting pain down the leg or the numbness, tingling. Well, that doesn't just stop there. If that compression continues or gets worse, you will eventually lose feeling in both legs and you will start to lose muscle function. And then you start to lose vital organ function, like losing control of your bladder. Like those are the crazy stories. It's like, that's 911. Thankfully, so far in my practice, I have not had anyone with that, but chiropractors deal with it where patients come in, they're like, hey, I'm having back pain. I'm like, okay. Or, I heard a doc and was interviewing a patient. He's like, well, do you have any other symptoms? They're like, yeah, I've really been like, I haven't been able to like pick my feet up. Like my feet keep slapping on the floor. And he's like, okay. He's like, anything else? He's like, yeah, I've been finding myself going to the bathroom more frequently. Like I can't hold it. Like I wet myself the other night because I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And it's like, get out of my office. Like you are straight ER, spinal decompression surgery, like immediately, because you're on your way to literally being paralyzed. So those are the crazy, scary stories. Again, it's just things that we have to recognize. Another thing that is another myth of chiropractic is like, we are at the end of the day doctors in the sense of we need to recognize what we can and what we can't treat. So like I did have an issue where a guy came in and he was having chest pain really bad. He said, oh, I think I pinched a nerve in my neck. It's radiating down. And I was like, ooh, I don't really like this. And he had a history of heart conditions and heart issues. I'm like, let's get you out to the primary. So I did send him out. Luckily, it was okay. He was already on blood pressure medication and things like that. But that was kind of a scary story because you hear that and you're just like, oh, that could be really bad. So I would say that's like one of the scarier, crazier stories. But, again, we are doctors. We're trained to understand what I can treat and what I can't treat. Like that person comes in and they have chest pain on their left arm and they have pain going down their left arm.
Right.
I'm not fucking adjusting them. Pardon my language. I'm not.
Oh, you're good.
Like, so again,
no, honestly, I think that's super important that you mentioned that because I think that a lot of people, even trainers, like they don't stay within their scope of practice or realize that just because you're a doctor or just because in my case, like a trainer, doesn't mean you need to have the answers for everything, nor can you treat or help everything. So you mentioning that you refer out to if you need to, like, case by case, if you know that, hey, like this isn't my scope of practice, like I'm not going to sit here and start trying to pop things, even though in the back of my mind, I know they should probably be over there. you know, and
Yeah.
I think that's super, super big. And honestly, it just shows your professionalism. So, I mean, that's a huge kudos to you, because not a lot of people are like that. A lot of people would rather, you know, try to keep that client and keep that money coming in. Exactly. You know, and I've seen trainers do it too. Like for myself, like I'll give nutritional advice, I'll give all that stuff. But if it's something that like is definitely a more severe case, it's like, yo, honestly, I think you should see a nutritionist or dietitian. Like you need more help than I can give you. Or, you know, if they start asking questions about, you know, such as, you know, can you crack my back or whatever, it's like, honestly, yeah, like I could do like the basic one that everyone does. But honestly, I think you should probably go see a chiro, or, you know, in someone in that field. Like you have to know your scope. Just because you can, for like a trainer, just because I know I can crack someone, or let's say I've watched all your videos, let's say start to finish, doesn't mean I should be going out there and start trying to do it myself or add that as a service to my clients, right? And I think that's where a lot of people start, you know, taking that a different route. I've seen so many trainers, and I know a few of them, where all of a sudden they start becoming, you know, they're a trainer slash chiropractor slash masseuse slash, you know, dietitian. I'm like, bro, there's no way you do all those things at professional level. Like you're just taking a little bit that you read on the internet and just trying to do it, and honestly, you're going to end up hurting someone, you know. So that's a huge thing, that you already know that, you know, in your, as early as you are in your professional career. So awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I see, and it is something that, you know, can often get chiropractors in trouble, is that, you know, we hear about these claims and these cases of chiropractors who are treating people that they shouldn't have, or things that, again, yeah, handling things that they, again, just don't have any business doing. But again, I will say one of the things that I love about our profession is that it's growing and evolving every day. And I think a lot of these newer students and these newer grads coming out are very, very evidence-based. So we're all looking at, what does the research tell us? Again, and just really kind of reading the research papers to understand and help direct patient care a little bit better. So on that end, it is nice, and it's very refreshing. I'm excited to see kind of where the profession will go and where it's growing right now, as we're starting to, again, focus on that and actually getting some really good scientific literature to kind of back up what we're doing. Because for a long time, chiropractic was very much kind of lumped in with acupuncture, in the sense of like, everyone, like, people know it works, but we don't have the evidence to support it, you know?
Right.
And so now having like the actual research and data to kind of back up what we're doing and why it works is just really, really great. So,
I mean, if anyone has any doubts of like if it works or not, just go get adjusted. See for yourself. I guarantee you, it's one of those ones where it's not like a workout where you have to wait weeks before you start seeing, you know, massive results. You literally get instant gratification from pain in most cases, you know.
yeah.
And I know from personal experience, like back when I used to fight and stuff, like if I tweaked something or pulled something, or like not pulled like a muscle, but like, you know, strained myself essentially, and I went to go to the chiro, like back in Santa Clarita, it was instant. Like, you know, I loved it, you know. How do you feel about like inversion tables? And I've seen one that like they attach like a door or something, kind of like the decompression headrest, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, those are good ones. Yeah, I get those all the time. Again, I've had maybe in my 4 years of practice and thousands of patients I've seen, I've maybe had like a handful of patients who have actually found like long-term success and results with those inversion tables. Most of them are always asking me if I know anyone who wants one, because they're trying to sell it because they bought one. So that's like the common thing. I can't tell. I've had more patients who try to sell me their inversion table than I've had patients who tell me that it works for them. Yeah, it's okay. Again, I think the idea of decompressing your spine sounds great in theory, but it just sadly just doesn't really work like that. You know, if it did, we'd all be sleeping like bats. But that's that. The one that attaches to the door, I think you're referring to like the neck hammock, where it kind of hooks around to the base of the neck. So the nice thing about the inversion tables where you're hanging from your feet is that you can hang for much longer, because most of the traction is on your ankles, and then you get some traction at the knees, and then a little bit at the hips and low back, and then pretty much next to none of your neck, because most of that is obviously kind of bared at your feet. Now we flip that around. Now most of the traction is on the neck and the cervical spine. And the neck, the cervical spine specifically, is the most sensitive part of the spine. It's a very delicate, very fragile area. It's right where your brain stem is, as your spinal cord is originating. Again, it's a very, very delicate area. And so oftentimes when we do traction, especially myself, I will do manual traction, or, the Y shaft, the ring gear, you see those extreme adjustments where they're like yanking on people's heads. It's still, even though it looks crazy and looks violent on camera, in all reality, it's a trained professional who is delivering a very specific amount of force to the neck that's in a controlled amount. When you start setting up on a door, you're not in control of how much tension, how many pounds per square inch are actually stretching the neck. And people also don't know how long to stay on it, so then you end up like sustained traction, and it ends up stretching ligaments and in the neck. And then people have come to me very, very flared up, and their neck was really, really irritated, often usually worse than before they put the neck hammock on. So I exercise like a lot of caution on that. And I say, if you're looking for decompression, there's actually chiropractors and other providers out there who have specific computerized decompression tables where they set up on the neck, and there's a cable that's mounted to a computer that they can type in the exact amount of traction to use. So that way it's safe and effective for you. But outside of those decompression tables that are computerized, I really don't like the whole hammocks, because you don't have control, right. And it's literally just someone yanking and stretching on your neck. And I'm just personally not a fan. And because I've seen it so many times where patients come in and maybe really, really messed up from that. So.
No, definitely. Honestly, that it makes sense. I had an inversion table, but mine was a gift from my dad, because he bought one, didn't use it, and pawned it off basically on me just to get it out of his house. I used it probably maybe 3 or 4 times and had it there if my clients wanted to use it, and I was like, when we moved from that spot, I was like, I put it on the side, and it was basically free. Whoever wants it. It did get taken, but it's cool. It's a cool thought, but in my opinion, if you're looking for that decompression, definitely, like you said, go to a chiropractor, whether it's to use that table or just to get adjusted, because honestly, like, you're going to spend money on it. It's going to sit in your corner, and it's going to collect your clothes, It's
a hanging rack. That's what it ends up being.
Exactly. So, how do you feel about, obviously with you cracking and adjusting and everything, how do you feel about like people cracking their knuckles or cracking their necks on a daily basis? Is that bad? Is it good? Is it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So interestingly enough, the joints in the extremities, so like shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees, ankles, are those joints that they sustain or they handle that cracking, that repetitive cracking better. The joints of the spine just tend to be very, very sensitive because of the spinal cord being right next to those joints. You have to understand, like, you have your joints and you have your spinal cord going right around. And so it creates this nice ring right around your spinal cord. And so when people are trying to crack their neck, there's a bigger risk, because you're right next to the cord. You can really irritate yourself if you have the wrong direction or you put too much force through. And so that's something that I'll commonly see, obviously, as people who didn't have the right force. Even myself, I know I can feel, I have the body awareness. I've been getting adjusted, every week or 2 weeks, since I started school. So I know when I'm like, ooh, yeah, that joint is locked up. That C7, that 7th vertebra right there, I know it's locked up. I still go to another chiro and I'm like, hey, I need you to get this joint moving, and then have them adjust, because they can get the right direction and the right amplitude and the right force. Even for me, it's hard to, even when I know the angle of the joints, it's so difficult to get that right kind of amount of force. So obviously someone who's never taken any anatomy courses or actually been skilled and trained in adjusting, you have no idea what you're doing. So that's number one. Number two, what I often see, and this is the analogy I use all the time, is that I tell people, hey, look, you cracked your neck in the morning. Why? Because it felt stiff, right? Okay, well, what happens when 15 minutes or an hour later, your neck feels stiff again? What do you want to do?
Crack it.
You want to crack it again. So at the end of the day, if you were to come to a chiropractor and you were to come see me in my office and I adjusted you and you're like, oh, doc, I feel so much better. I'm like, Hey, Devin, that's so great. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Hey, I'll see you in an hour. Like, you would think I'm psychotic. Like, that would not make any sense, right? So what I tell people is often you're getting a pop or a crack, but you're not getting the crack. There's a certain bone that's stuck. It's not moving very well. And say it's this bone right here, but this is the one that you get a pop in. You get a temporary relief because you get that endorphin rush of like getting an adjustment. You think you got it, you feel better. And then an hour later, it's stiff again. Why? Because you never actually resolved the problem. And so over time, what you end up doing is this bone is stuck. It's still not moving the direction it should. And that's why you just feel that kind of stiffness, but you're cracking the bone above it or the bone below it. What do you think you're doing to that joint above it? You're making it hypermobile. So now you've created a motion problem because you still never fixed the bone that doesn't move. And the bone above it now is so loose, it's like a sprained ankle that just kind of rolls whenever it wants. So that causes a whole different host of issues. So now I'm like, okay, hey, look, it's always the easiest question. I say, how many times a day do you crack your neck? They're like, I don't know, I lost count. I'm like, that's a bad thing. That's a very, very bad sign. So I'm like, okay, we got a lot of work to do. And some of it is probably going to involve visits where I'm not even adjusting you. We're working on rehab and strengthening because that joint that you kept mobilizing overhead, that's like a sprained ankle on top, we have to stabilize that joint now. Like it's like a trash bag. You overstretched it. So all the ligaments are just loose. So that causes a whole different host of problems. So that's for people, especially when I see the neck or they're always like twisting and they're like kind of throwing their leg or jerking their leg across their body. I'm like, look, you're getting a crack, but you're not getting the crack, you know?
Oh, that's interesting. That honestly, that makes a lot of sense. That was solid information right there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, I just spread that message around. If you take one thing from today's podcast, it's literally that. Just go see someone, because if you're adjusting yourself every hour, you're not fixing the problem.
You can crack your knuckles, but don't crack your neck.
I don't want to see patients more. I want to see people less, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. You can crack your knuckles, crack your ankles, but don't crack your neck.
Yes.
But I'm gonna put it on a shirt for you. Yeah. Is there anything that you wanna, let them know, or, any points that you wanna, touch on that we haven't really touched on about chiropractic or about, just fitness in general? I know you've thrown out a lot of information. Honestly, this call was a lot better than I anticipated. I didn't really know what to expect. One, I haven't spoken to you for so long, and it's one of those things where when you're, even for myself, when you're making Instagram content or social media content, it's easy to, plan it ahead, know what you're about to talk about, but just going into it and just being able to, like, I had notes on the side, and honestly, I think we touched like one or two of them. I just kind of kept going off of what we were talking about, which is the cool thing. So honestly, I appreciate the conversation, the information, but definitely if there's anything that I've missed or that are important things or questions that you get a lot, I would love for you to, voice it.
Yeah, I guess my final thing I would say is that, number one, every single person out there, every single person with a spine should be going to see a chiropractor, at some point on some form of a routine or a maintenance basis. Again, we go to the dentist, we go to the doctors for physicals. Like, we need to be getting our spine checked and getting our joints in our body just kind of assessed. Not just from like a holistic wellness perspective, but from a preventative perspective of having someone who can see and potentially forecast or foresee problems that may issue or arise in the future. That it's essential, man. It's so important. Tapering on top of that, though, I will say that, again, every chiropractor is different. And so you're going to find chiropractors that you like and chiropractors that you really didn't like. And again, I understand. I just didn't have great experiences with medical doctors growing up, and it really steered me out of the medical profession. And I blame myself for that, for not giving them a chance or giving another doctor a chance. So I just encourage people to kind of exercise that same mindset with chiropractors, that, hey, you may find a chiropractor and go try it out and it's not what you liked, but I promise you that every chiropractor is different, and you will find someone that will really, really help you and can help be your health coach and your partner in a world where we're so much reliant on sick care and just keeping people from not getting sick or just giving them stuff for the symptoms. Having someone who's on your side, who's really focused on your wellness and optimizing your health, I think that's so essential in today's day and age. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think people just have to realize that, you know, chiropractors are still people. Like just in your normal life, in your daily life, you don't get along with everyone or like everyone that you meet, but it doesn't mean that next person you're not gonna click with. You know, you don't if you have a bad experience with your car mechanic, it doesn't mean you're never gonna go to a car mechanic again. You know, so
exactly.
I completely get it. You know, like just like our end, you know, it's not like you're gonna mesh with every client. You know, because I know I don't mesh with every client. It happens, but it goes the opposite way too. But it doesn't mean you're not gonna talk to the next person. And for them, you know, they shouldn't go talk to another chiro, or for me, go talk to another trainer. There is someone that can help you and mesh with you. So definitely, just because may have had a bad experience once, you know, I definitely second everything that you've said, and I definitely recommend from personal experience, you know, that everyone should be seeing a chiro because honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, again, yeah, I just thank you for being on or for having me on here. And, you know, thank you for being on this side of health and fitness, of getting people better and keeping them well. I think, again, it's so, so important in today's day and age to just keep people moving and keep people healthy,
No,
not
I
just in our current time, but coming out of COVID, it's like, man, we need to get moving. We really need to get people moving. So any way that we can do that is so crucial. So, man, appreciate
no,
all the work you're doing.
and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the content you're putting out, and as well as thank you for taking the time out of your day to hop on this podcast with us. You know, thank you so much, and we'll definitely catch up soon. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'll hit you up as soon as I come up to LA, man. Love to
Yeah,
catch up and link
definitely.
up.
Oh yeah, by the way, next time, whether I'm in San Diego, because my brother lives out there, next time I'm out there or you're up here,
Yeah,
I gotta try the Y strap thing. That is
100%.
one thing I literally see on social media all the time, and I'm like, dude, that's the one adjustment I want to do. But at the same time, like, I don't want to just go some random like chiropractor and be like, hey,
Yeah,
can you just hit me with the Y strap real quick? Like, I'm in between clients, but no, I honestly like, you know, um, definitely that's one thing I want to try out. So whether you're up here or I'm down there, like, you know, we definitely got to link up.
100%, dude. It'll rock your world. It's one of my favorite adjustments. It's killer. So yeah, man. All right, dude. Well,
I'll
hey,
have a good one.
take care. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Later.